All right, so every day that passes, more unsealed indictments are coming out, more declasses happening, and a lot more of the deep state is crumbling as we speak. And so a lot of things are being said that are going over people's heads. Recently, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said something. I want to go over that, as well as other things that are occurring in some sense behind the scenes, but also it's just overtly, but people are not reporting on it and tying the connections together, especially as it relates to Soros, the attacks on Trump, as well as their last-ditch effort to try to survive. So let's get into it, talk about these updates, and connect it together. So in a recent White House press briefing, listen to what Bessent says when somebody asked him about funding Antifa.
Reagan Reese with the Daily Caller. I want to ask you about Antifa. In October, the Treasury Department started working with the FBI to investigate who's funding Antifa. Can you give us an update on that investigation? How close are you guys to finding out who's funding Antifa?
It is ongoing. We made substantial progress, and I think in the weeks and months ahead, we're going to have a lot to report. One thing that did go the underreported that I would point out to all of you is the IRS is now giving guidance on the Form 990, which nonprofits they have to file. And we are going to encourage or demand that nonprofits know their grant recipients. So if a grant recipient is violent, if they are suppressing people's rights, then you are responsible for that. And I think that's a very good first step.
Now listen to what he said there. This is a big move. It's requiring disclosure and no more anonymity because the IRS is making NGOs liable for violent activity committed by their grant recipients like Antifa. And so George Soros, these guys have been put on notice. And that reminds me of a roundtable that happened with a lot of independent journalists that was reporting and talking with President Trump back in October of last year. And listen to what this one person had to say.
Please, go ahead.
Mr. President, thank you for having us here and bringing together. I think we know that this is not just a story about violence and chaos, as you alluded to, Mr. President. This is a money story. And at the Government Accountability Institute, my colleague and I, Peter Schweitzer and our team, we followed the money, and we followed it to the top of what we call the protest industrial complex, Riot Inc. And we found a network of NGOs. It's not just the Soros network, the Open Society network, it's other funding networks, the Arabella funding network, the Tides funding network, Neville Roy Singham and his network, Foreign Cash. And it's also big left-wing funders. Some of them are not citizens of this country. Mr. Hans-Jörg Wyss of Switzerland. They're pouring money into this entire ecosystem. And so I want to share 3 money facts with you about what we call Riot Inc. Number one, like any corporation, Riot Inc. has many divisions. It doesn't just have the Antifa boots on the ground division. It has PR divisions. It has marketing divisions. It has a very well-funded legal division to get these boots on the ground back on the streets as quickly as possible. But it does have those investors that I mentioned. Number two, we have identified dozens of radical organizations, not just the decentralized Antifa organizations, but dozens of radical organizations that have received more than $100 million from the Riot Inc. investors. These would be the lawyer groups. These would be the groups that advocate for calling good, honest Americans fascists, et cetera. And then 3, I think the most shocking thing is that we have found that more than $100 million in U.S. taxpayer funding has flowed into these funding networks, including at least $4 million to these very groups themselves, not just Antifa types, but there was an event in Atlanta called Stop Cop City. Over 60 rioters were charged with domestic terrorism. These groups received money for that from both the billionaire class as well as taxpayer money. So one other thing, this money helps fund the decentralized crowdfunding platforms. These are ways that Antifa, the John Brown Gun Club of Elm Fork, which had links to that attack on the ICE facility, the Socialist Rifle Association, and just because they don't have LLCs or EIN numbers doesn't mean they can't get paid. Some of these funding platforms, crowdfunding platforms, are funded by this network that we call Riot Inc. So again, I want to thank you for your leadership, for the whole cabinet's leadership on this. We're going to keep following the money and appreciate everything you're doing, sir.
Do you know the name of any of the funders? Do you know the names? Because if you do, I'd like you to give them to Cash or Pam.
Absolutely.
Or Christy.
Yeah, we'll do that.
As soon as you can. That's all of you. Because you probably know the names after a certain period of time. You tend to find out. But these are people that do not have good intention for the country, and that's treasonous probably. So if you could, very important, if you could do that, it would be great. Nobody would know better than you. You'll figure it out. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Now, listen to what he said here, because he's inviting legitimate researchers, independent journalists to bring on what they know. And with the help of the DOJ, DNI, and all these people, as Trump just mentioned, they're going to go after these treasonous people. And Trump has mentioned this several times in various speeches. Listen to what he says in this one.
You ever see where they interview the people on the street? I've never seen somebody say they don't, unless they're radical and paid off, because a lot of these insurrectionists are paid by, whether it's Soros or other people, but they're paid by the radical left.
And then if you remember this post back in August of 2025 last year, he says George Soros and his wonderful radical left son should be charged with RICO because of their support of violent protests and much more all throughout the United States of America. We're not going to allow these lunatics to rip apart America anymore, never giving it so much as a chance to breathe and be free. Soros and his group of psychopaths have caused great damage to our country. That includes his crazy West Coast friends. Be careful, we're watching you. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now listen to this other time that he mentioned Soros and also another name.
Them, Jeff.
No, I'm not defending anyone. I just want, so that we can just explain this in our stories. Could you name a couple?
You don't explain it right, though, Jeff. Go ahead. Let's go. Maybe let's give you another chance. Go ahead.
Antifa, Soros.
Yeah.
What names are we talking about?
Well, Soros is a name certainly that I keep hearing. I don't know, but Soros is a name that I hear. I hear a lot of different names. I hear names of some pretty rich people that are radical left people. Maybe I hear about a guy named Reid Hoffman. Somebody's a pretty rich guy, I guess, and I hear about him. I don't know. Maybe could be him. Could be a lot of people. We hear the same names, but they're bad, and we're going to find out. And if they are funding these things, they're going to have some problems because they're agitators and they're anarchists. These are anarchists. Really bad.
Now, that's absolutely interesting because, again, he was hesitating there back on the 25th of September last year, talking about Soros, but also Reid Hoffman. And this just broke within the last day. The Justice Department has opened a criminal investigation into Eugene Carroll, the former magazine columnist who accused Donald Trump of sexual assault, according to reports. The DOJ investigation will focus on whether Carroll committed perjury in her civil lawsuits against the president, sources told CNN and ABC News. And now Reid Hoffman here is in the news because he funded or helped fund Eugene Carroll. But I want to read what Joe Lang had to say because he has some great commentary. This is bigger than people realize. Eugene Carroll is eventually going to go to prison for participating in a conspiracy to try and prevent Trump from running for president. Again, perjury charges, and I just read this part of what Eugene Carroll did, but perjury charges, I think Trump is going to win his appeals against her court-awarded judgments. Earlier this month, a federal appeals court rejected Trump's attempts to rehear his arguments against Carroll, who has accused the president of repeatedly defaming her. The Department of Justice then announced plans to intervene and then stepped in on the president's behalf in his appeal to the Supreme Court. Why would the DOJ step in on Trump's behalf in his appeal to the Supreme Court? Sounds like the DOJ has some solid evidence. What was Eugene Carroll caught lying about? Federal prosecutors are looking at a 2022 videotaped deposition statement in which Carroll said that she did not get any outside funding for her lawsuit against Trump. It was later made public that billionaire Reid Hoffman, again, that name Reid Hoffman, had covered some of Carroll's expenses and legal fees. Did you catch that? She lied about who was funding her lawsuits. Eugene Carroll is not the real target. Who is? Reid Hoffman. Do you know why Reid Hoffman paid Eugene Carroll to accuse Trump of rape in a defamation lawsuit? Reid Hoffman was good friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Reid Hoffman had a documented relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, meeting him multiple times between 2013 and 2016, years after Epstein's 2008 conviction as a registered sex offender. Hoffman visited Epstein's private island, Little St. James, in November 2014 and hosted Epstein at a 2015 dinner in Palo Alto. The billionaire co-founder of LinkedIn was friends with Epstein, emailed him a lot, and visited Epstein Island, where underage children were sexually abused and tortured. Could that be why Reid Hoffman was desperate to prevent Trump from running for president again? Eugene Carroll lied about her connections to Reid Hoffman, and then when they were exposed, she claimed she had no communications with him at all. Do you think that's true? What do you want to bet? That the DOJ is in control of evidence, that Hoffman was coordinating with Carroll, and she lied about that too. FISA goes both ways. Military intelligence captures all forms of electronic data. Follow the timeline. E. Jean Carroll publicly accuses Trump of rape in a book she's pushing back in June of 2019. Then 1 month later, in July of 2019, Epstein gets caught by surprise and arrested in New York. Panic. Guess when Reid Hoffman first established his nonprofit that funded E. Jean Carroll's defamation lawsuit against Trump? Reid Hoffman established the nonprofit American Future Republic in 2019 with specific records indicating its founding date as late 2019. The organization was created as a left-of-center 501c4 social welfare group based in Chicago, Illinois, to fund activist groups and public policy initiatives. Hoffman established this nonprofit in October 2019. 1 month later, E. Jean Carroll filed her defamation lawsuit against Trump. Hoffman's new nonprofit would then go on to fund Carroll's lawsuits. I'm sure the timing of all this was just a coincidence, and there is no evidence of a conspiracy to frame Trump, right? There are no coincidences. Reid Hoffman's nonprofit was based out of Chicago, Illinois. Guess which prosecutor is bringing all these charges against Carroll? The investigation, which was first reported by CNN, is being led by U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois, Andrew Boltros. That's Chicago. Coincidence? Who's the real target? Now, again, with E. Jean Carroll and now Reid Hoffman in the news is blowing up about what this means and the probes, the unsealing of the indictments and all of these things. Now, listen to what Elon Musk had to say, because, again, he did the Doge audits last year, so he was privy to movements of money and all that stuff.
It's a gigantic scam, like one of the biggest, maybe the biggest scam ever.
And how many NGOs?
I think there's a total number of NGOs, probably millions, but in terms of large NGOs, tens of thousands. I mean, it's actually kind of a hack to the system where someone can get an NGO stood up for a fairly small amount of money. Like George Soros is really good at this. Like George Soros is like a system hacker. Like he figured out how to hack the system. He's a genius at arbitrage. I mean, these days he's pretty old, but a genius at arbitrage. So he figured out that you could leverage a small amount of money to create a nonprofit, then lobby the politicians to send a ton of money to that nonprofit, so you can take what might be, a $10 million donation to a nonprofit to create a nonprofit and leverage that into $1 billion NGO. And a nonprofit is a weird word. It's just a non-governmental organization, and then the government continues to fund that every year, and it'll have a nice sounding name like the Institute for Peace or something like that. But really, it's a graft machine.
Now, that reminds me of post 489 from Q, where he says, U.S. taxpayers are paying for it all. Paris Accord equals scam trillions. Red Cross equals scam billions. Foreign aid equals scam trillions. War equals scam trillions. On and on. Who audits where the money actually goes? Who actually receives the money? The U.S. taxpayer is funding the very people we are engaged in taking down. Slush funds everywhere. Think George Soros pays for Antifa out of his own pocket? The hole is deep. Feel sick yet? And more of this is being exposed. Nick Sorter here infiltrated the Antifa camp at New York ICE with a hidden camera. He saw tens of thousands of dollars of equipment, food, and even riot equipment being supplied. Hot food every hour. And so, again, I'm not going to show the whole video here, but he just basically shows going undercover all of these equipment. And President Trump has also called out this behavior many times. Listen to what he says here at a memorial for Charlie Kirk last year.
Many of these people, by the way, are paid a lot of money to do this. They're agitators. They're paid agitators. Remember that? When you see they all have the same beautifully printed sign, every sign is identical, comes out of a top-level print shop. This is not the signs that are made in somebody's basement. Those are paid for by very bad people, and hopefully we're going to be finding out through the DOJ who those people are.
Now, again, here talking about the agitators, the Antifa terrorist members. Now, many countries are waking up to this behavior. El Salvador President Bukele said he destroyed Soros' influence in his country. Now, listen quickly to what he said here.
Who elected Soros to dictate public policy and laws? Why does he feel entitled to impose his agenda? Let me tell you something. Soros and his cronies hit a brick wall in El Salvador. Thank God, another glory be to him, Salvadorans are now immune to his influence. No one believes his lies anymore over there.
Now, the question here that many people are asking is there's something that's going to be done with this. Now, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt answers this question when somebody asked about this last year in October.
Jordan, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. So we're talking about these radical groups in Portland and Chicago. I know the president has spoken about potentially going after George Soros with RICO charges and for funding all of this violence. Has there been any update on that? And also, is the administration looking into the other nonprofits, maybe taking away their 501c3 status for funding this violence? And one more question.
Sure. The financial backing of these groups, particularly Antifa, is certainly something the administration is looking into aggressively. And the federal government has never really been mobilized or tasked with doing that. So we're kind of kickstarting that into gear. The FBI is working on it alongside the White House's Homeland Security Task Force. We have our intelligence community looking into this as well. And even the Secretary of Treasury is involved with these matters since they are financial in nature. And we will continue to get to the bottom of who is funding these organizations in this organized anarchy against our country and our government. It's a question the American people have been begging the answer for many years, and we're committed to uncovering it. And when we do, I'm sure you'll be one of the first people to know.
Now, again, combine that with the recent update from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on what is coming next. Because if you remember, DNI Tulsi Gabbard is soon going to resign from her position, again, allegedly due to the cancer of her husband and dealing with that, personal matters. But again, what is happening? She's stepping down at the end of June. She still has 30-ish more days. And combined with some insinuation by Congressman Stephen King, where Tulsi Gabbard may soon release evidence on foreign interference in the 2020 election, because he was talking about all of the international affiliations that Soros specifically and other funders have done to interfere in those elections. Here he was talking about Macedonia. But what's also interesting is that apparently John Solomon from Real America's Voice on his show talked about how there is actually some evidence that's soon going to be released regarding foreign election interference and voter database breaches tied to China, Iran, and also with the funding aspect of who is funding what NGOs. And this is according to John Solomon, that Tulsi Gabbard may soon release this evidence. And so this is all about D-Class. And there are tons and tons of Q posts about Soros and how he's funding lots of money, $18 billion. Why is Antifa allowed to operate? What happens if Soros-funded operations get violent and engage in domestic terrorism? What happens if mayors, police, comms, chiefs do not enforce the law? Think recent events. That post being specifically 4393. But again, the government is tracking some of these things here, insinuating why did Soros transfer his bulk public funds to a non-profit? And then why does Soros donate all his money recently? Why would he place all his funds in a research center? And so on and so forth. And remember, as I talked about in a recent video, Soros is one of, according to Q, the three legs: House of Saud, Rothschilds, the Soros. And this is the plus, focusing on these three, as it says in post 133. Now, what I think is happening right now is that everything is happening slowly, drip, drip, and then flood. So you can't just go and round up these people and arrest them, because there's going to be chaos. But at the same time, you got to allow people to digest it, the research, the unsealing to come out, and then slowly but surely it's going to be networked. People are going to see it, and then we're going to see justice. Because for a very long time, Q has already told us what is about to happen, or some of the clues or drops to it, and then we're seeing it play out right now in 2025 and 2026. And so this is, again, all tied to this operation, this white hat military operation that we are seeing play out as we speak. And so I just want to give you guys this quick update. More to come, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And also, if you guys want to support me, you guys know I'm a listener supported, going through a little bit of a tough season until things get better. Would love your continued prayer and financial support. If you guys want to help me out, all the information is down below in the link, givesendgo.com/chrisyoonyt. Also, I have PayPal, Zelle, Venmo. Love you guys. More to come. Talk to you guys very soon.